You all know me. I'm not a big believer in the paranormal. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, gnomes, Wi-Fi, all just a bunch of horseradish if you ask me. And you know what else I didn't believe in until recently? One Piece being good. But now everything I thought I knew is crumbling around me because I am actually, finally, enjoying One Piece after 2 years of committing time to watching this to see if I'll ever enjoy it. I just finished Water 7 and Innie's Lobby, and I actually really liked those arcs. Now, typically this is a video I would post on my second channel, MoistCr1tikal Clips, because that's where I've been updating people on my One Piece progress, and it's also just a channel where I've been posting a bunch of other weird shit, so go subscribe to that channel, it'll make you more attractive. But the reason I decided not to put it on that channel this time is because this is such a pivotal moment in my anime viewing career. This is the biggest anime ever made and biggest manga by extension, and I've never liked it. I've always shouted bah humbug about all the people going crazy about how good One Piece is. But now, after 300 something episodes, I'm finally enjoying it. I'd given One Piece so many chances over the years to really grip me, and it never has, so I always thought that everyone that was preaching the gospel of One Piece being the best fiction ever produced, I thought they were all just a bunch of lunatics, like solar panel scammers just making up lies. You know, I thought that whole concept that One Piece was anything more than dog shit was more made up than the boogeyman. But I decided about 2 years ago now to really buckle down, grit my teeth, and just catch up on One Piece to see if it ever actually gets good. I was willing to subject myself to some torture with early One Piece seasons in order to see if the grass was ever greener on the other side when we finally reached like episode 250. There's a very popular meme about like, no bro, you have to give it like 9 seasons before the show gets good. You have to watch, 400 episodes before you start to like it. You just have to invest the time in it to really get the payoff. And my god, that couldn't be more true for One Piece. It took me 300 episodes to finally get to this point. That's not exactly, that's not nothing. That's a long time spent of not enjoying something before you start liking it. Eating vegetables before you finally get to the main course that you wanted to eat. So I understand why people don't usually subscribe to that belief, like it's not worth investing that much time into a show you don't even like until like 300 episodes in where you get like hypnotized into liking it maybe. I get it. But for One Piece, you know what? I'll just say it's been worth it. I'm not conceding on any of the points I ever made about the previous seasons prior to Water 7 because I still think the pacing was glacial and bad. The outright refusal to actually kill any characters outside of flashbacks was cowardly and takes a lot of the wind out of the sails of stakes when it comes to the show, as well as a couple of other arguments I've made a lot in the past that I don't need to just regurgitate here. Up until this point, there wasn't a whole lot I liked about it other than a couple of characters like Zoro and Chopper, and I did like the Alabasta arc overall, but on the whole, wasn't really feeling One Piece. I wasn't exactly pumping my fist getting excited for it. It was a show that literally was a sleep aid. Like, this was the cure for insomnia for the first 240 episodes. Like, it was so goddamn boring and generic. I wasn't enjoying it. But then, once I got to Water 7, things really started to turn up. Like a lot of people said. Most people actually, when I was talking about this on stream across my journey, always said that you have to at least get to Water 7 before it gets really good. And I can't fucking believe it, but they were right. It actually is good. So, I'm not just going to repeat all of the things I've said on my second channel about One Piece so far with my updates, so I'll just give you the brief cliff notes. I like some of the characters like Zoro and Chopper. I cannot stand Luffy. He's my least favorite character, and now after finishing Innie's Lobby, he is still my least favorite character. This fucking goober only has 2 modes. It's stupid, and then stupid and hungry. And then I guess a third mode when he's fighting. And then he's, at least he's not being annoying. Like, he's just a fucking grating character, and as I understand it, you either love or hate him. And unfortunately, I'm on the hate him side. I do not like him. He is very, very annoying, and I get that that's his whole character trait, but so far he has not evolved past that or developed past it at all. And I can never forgive this show for what it did during Skypiea, where it just put Luffy in the belly of a giant snake, and he stayed there for like 30 fucking episodes straight, and just was like left in stupid juice and like in this trance of idiot moron mode, where he just kept like punching walls, and he's like, oh, this is such a weird cave. Man, am I ever gonna leave this weird cave? Such a weird cave. Like, he himself made Skypiea almost unwatchable because he is just a perpetual stupid character. And that's just not that fun to watch, especially when it holds everything back. A lot of the problems are caused because Luffy is stupid, and I think that's just a weak plot point that drives things forward, or at least leading up to Water 7 and Indy's Lobby. There was a lot of moments where Luffy was literally the reason things went bad because he is dumb. Like, he is just legitimately dumb, and that's it. Like, he's just stupid. Being stuck in the belly of a snake for so long is beyond frustrating to watch because it just keeps repeating itself. Ah, this is a weird cave. God, this cave is so weird. Gum Gum Gatling. Ah, these cave walls are so big. Cave is weird. And then he's finally freed from the snake at the very fucking end. He's like, oh, you guys came into the weird cave to save me? You're like, Luffy, it's a snake. What do you mean it's a snake? It's a cave. It's just so fucking, it's so lame. It's so lame. I cannot stand Luffy as a character. There's only like maybe 3 or 4 moments where he's been serious. And even then, he's still a bit of a goofball. And that's, I don't know, I just don't really like that kind of character trait hammered in nonstop. But all the other characters so far, for the most part, I do like, with Zoro and Chopper being my favorite. Zoro, because he's just a perpetual badass, and he is usually always serious, and when he's not, it's actually kind of rewarding to see him lighten up. And Chopper, because I actually really like Chopper's backstory. So far, he's one of the few characters that got a lot of attention given to them prior to Water 7, of course. And I liked that. I liked everything about his motivation, his drive, where he's come from, and how he grows. Now, we get to Water 7, and every character is getting a lot more to them, especially Nico Robin, the most mysterious of the crew. And there's a lot of drama that happens with Usopp leaving the crew after the Going Merry is deemed insalvageable. They can't, revive her. They couldn't get the paddles out and fucking shock it back. It was kaput. It's dead. And Usopp he's not having it. He thinks Luffy and the crew gave up on the Going Merry too early. So Usopp leaves the crew after challenging Luffy to a duel, and it's very emotional. It's very emotional. I didn't like Usopp that much until Water 7. Now I really like Usopp. And by extension, his alter ego, Sniper King. Like, everything I complained about up until Water 7, they are directly addressing and making better, except Luffy. So I'm getting excited here. The fights are better. I did like the Iniru fight from the Skypiea arc, even though Skypiea as a whole absolutely blew filthy fucking ass. But the Iniru fight at the end I thought was fantastic. And now we're seeing a lot more great fights in these 2 arcs. So I don't know, I've just been really liking it a lot more. Though most of my complaints are still here. I still fucking hate how nobody dies. Nobody dies in this show outside of a flashback. Only when they're doing flashbacks do they have deaths so far. There's no real integral character deaths or really emotional moments so far. The biggest culprit, the biggest crime, and this was an affront to God when it comes to bad writing, is in the Alabasta arc when Pell takes like the nuclear bomb that's about to blow up Alabasta, flies it up into the sunset in order to sacrifice himself, a noble sacrifice, completing his character arc perfectly, and he does that, bomb blows up, everyone's expecting Pell to be dead because he just ate a goddamn nuclear bomb for breakfast, but then he's not dead. He's still alive. He still lives because they don't kill anyone off in this fucking show. And I think that's such a misstep. All of the big bad villains are still alive. Luffy just knocks them unconscious like it's a Pokemon fight. That is underwhelming. I think that's very underwhelming, especially for the Pirate King. The kid who wants to be the Pirate King. The crew, the Pirate Hunter, Zoro. Like, it's just underwhelming. So that complaint is still here even after Inny's Lobby. But I know there are character deaths coming up. I've been spoiled, obviously, on where the show goes because Tiana watched all of it in a short period of time, so I saw a lot of it. And I know there are character deaths that come up, but even still, as of right now, it's just lackluster. Because I always know, no matter what, they're not going to kill off even minor characters, even characters that don't have a whole lot to contribute. Nothing really happens to them. So that always grinds my ass grease. I really do still have an issue with that, pulling all of these punches when it would be a lot more impactful to the story if they would just commit to killing some characters that obviously were being set up for something like that. But anyway, that's probably still my biggest complaint. But overall, Water 7 and Inny's Lobby have done wonders for making this show enjoyable. The villains are much more interesting here. It's introducing a ton of new, deeper underlying issues that are going on in the world around them, even outside of the immediate problems. The overarching plot continues to get bigger in the scale and scope of it. So it's just finally being fucking interesting and not just a slog or a tedious chore to get through. The reason it's taken me 2 years to even get this far into the show is because I would constantly fall asleep throughout these episodes. So it would take me like a month, 2 months, or even sometimes 3 months to finish a single episode because every time I'd put it on, it would put me to sleep. It was more effective than NyQuil. Like, some of these episodes in the other arcs were just so meaningless and so boring. Like, I wasn't invested in it. And there is still some of those sins committed even in this arc, in these 2 arcs. Like, for example, in the middle of very high stakes stuff, when they're working to get Nico Robin back on the crew after learning the truth about why she betrayed them, in the middle of that, there is, I think it's 4 episodes of just flashback filler. In the middle of like this extremely important moment with Nico Robin opening up about her past, wanting to come back to the Straw Hats but can't because of the Buster order. And during this, like as they're squaring off with all the bad guys and with Nico there as well, they just like fucking shoehorn in like 4 filler episodes. Why? What, like in the middle of very important stuff. At least I think it was at that part. I'm already getting a little foggy on exactly when those flashback fillers come in, but I'm pretty sure it's there. And it's just, it's unnecessary. It doesn't add anything. All it does is ruin, once again, the pacing and detract from the enjoyment. So there are still those moments here, even in what I consider to be the best arcs of the show so far, but they're much lesser and a lot less egregious. So overall, I just like the direction Water 7 and Enies Lobby is taking the show. I'm finally starting to see how this opens up into something very special for the first time. So yeah, I'm finally liking One Piece. I know this isn't the most like detailed Moist Meter review breakdown of Water 7 and Enies Lobby, but I don't really think that's necessary. All of you watching this have probably already formed your opinions about One Piece, and there's not a whole lot I can do to like change your mind. All I can speak to is what I've found not enjoyable versus enjoyable. And right now, Water 7 and Enies Lobby is exactly what I'm looking for from a show like One Piece. So I'm hoping the coming arcs continue that energy and keep that momentum pumping. So yeah, finally liking One Piece. That's about it. So yeah, they actually did it. They made a live-action anime series that wasn't utter embarrassing trash that's poisonous to the human eyeballs. The live-action One Piece is very impressive. I didn't think it was possible. I thought we'd discover faster than light travel before we discovered how to make a live-action anime that doesn't suck shit. But boy howdy was I wrong. So, I want to give my full thoughts on the One Piece live-action series on Netflix, but before I do that, I'd like to just quickly announce that we're doing a big bundle sale for our comic series Godslap. It's going on right now for the next couple of days, so if you wanted to get into Godslap as well as get some Godslap merch, this is the perfect time for it. It's on badegg.co, I'll put a link in the description. Shameless plug over, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm sure a lot of you know, I was very skeptical when this project was announced. I was even more skeptical and bah-humbogging when they first started releasing a few short scenes on Twitter from very early on. But then, they started to win me over. The tides were changing when they released a video going over how they built the ships. Because it's practical effects there. They actually built the fucking ships, and they look spectacular in the show. So once they released that, and once they released the following trailer, I was kind of sold on the hopium that this could actually end up being pretty good. And it turns out it is good. I'll go ahead and quickly address this because I know a lot of people will ask, where am I in One Piece at the moment? I'm just about to finish the Thriller Bark arc, and I'm enjoying it. Now let's begin with the most surprising thing about the live-action One Piece. The characters aren't cringe. They actually do a really good job with the characters because they do something very smart. They don't try and emulate the anime characters one-to-one. They capture the spirit of the characters from the show and manga without trying to take everything that made them special in the anime and try and have humans cosplay it. Let me explain what I mean. One of my biggest criticisms about adapting anime into live action, the one that I made very vocal with the Cowboy Bebop fucking catastrophe, is that you can't take an animated character and mimic that personality with a real person. The flesh of an organism can only convey so much. However, in animation, you have limitless freedom of expression. And in that medium, it makes sense. It feels natural and normal. It's not like embarrassing or weird. But if you take that and try and have a person do it, then it becomes pretty unwatchably bad. The perfect example of this is actually with Cowboy Bebop, the character Ed, who appears in the anime and the live action. And in the live action, they tried to one-to-one clone Ed. So, they had the live action character of Ed doing the same things the anime counterpart did. Oh, well, Spike, it looks like, you know, that kind of shit. And it's hard to watch. It turns out taking an animated character and trying to translate it to a real person doesn't exactly go over super well or look all that great. And One Piece must have recognized that because they don't. Again, the spirit is completely intact. All of the characters in the live action feel like the characters in the anime and manga, but without them coming across as some kind of half-baked bootleg carbon copy. And that is so refreshing. One Piece has a lot of quirky characters. You know, even as simple as like laughs, they make very over-the-top and fun. Stuff like that. And what I expected going into the live action is they'd try and keep that same DNA and put it in the live action and it wouldn't land. But they don't. They take that DNA and put that motherfucker through CRISPR and splice it. They keep the spirit while making it work in live action. Best example is actually Luffy. Now, a lot of you know I haven't been the biggest fan of Luffy, which has made me the #1 most wanted on the grand line of the One Piece community. My fucking wanted posters in the billions of berries because I wasn't the biggest Luffy enthusiast. I'm not gonna get into the weeds of it, but in a nutshell, the Cliff Notes version was, and according to a lot of members of the community, this is a dub-only problem, so perhaps that's why, Luffy as a character displayed very simple personality traits without a ton of growth. Outside of some very pivotal moments with the crew and very personable moments between Luffy and the crew, the most part was just spent ironing him as stupid and obsessed with meat. And then just nerfing him, taking him out of the equation by getting him stuck in between 2 buildings for 15 episodes or getting him stuck in a snake's belly for 15 episodes, that kind of thing. But as the series has continued to evolve, Luffy is now starting to develop as well. Like I mentioned, in Innie's lobby, he finally recognized that he needs to change as a captain in order to better protect his crewmates. He can't just overpower everyone as he was. Thus, he started to develop new ways of keeping everyone safe and fighting for his friends, so he develops the second gear. And now, going through Thriller Bark, he is only continuing to develop. Thus, I am starting to warm up to him more and more. I got a little sidetracked there. I did end up dabbling in the weeds a bit. The point I wanted to make is Luffy goes through emotional development in the anime over a long period of time. In the live action, they actually take that and condense it to 8 episodes very effectively, I felt. Now, the show does follow the anime and manga story beats pretty closely for the most part, with of course some creative liberties taken to make it more conducive to live action. And I think for the most part, all of those changes work really well. The tone of the show is actually far more mature than I would have expected. Like, the characters, aside from just having the mouth of a sailor, some potty mouth, they actually say fuck and shit. They say shit a lot. They actually increased the maturity of most of the characters as well. Like, for example, Usopp. Usopp in the anime, when he first joins the crew, he is very in-your-face, over the top with constant yelling and joking or telling stories. And in the live action, he's very mellow. They really tone that down. Like, he's serious more often than he's silly, and it actually works pretty well. Now, Usopp, of course, in the live action is still telling stories often and telling jokes, but it never feels like it's too much to the point where it gets annoying or overstaying its welcome, like sometimes it did in the anime, where Usopp was on screen and you could most likely bet that it was just going to be a comic relief moment unless shit was about to pop off or he was on fucking death's door. So I just actually really like what they did with pretty much all of the characters. I think the biggest standout for me is Mihawk, actually. Mihawk is so badass in this show. Like, his introduction in the live action is one of the best I've seen in general. Like, they introduced Mihawk in the best possible way. His fight with Zoro is really good. It's super true to the source material, and they fucking nailed every beat of it. It all looks great, honestly. Mihawk, I thought they crushed. But now let's move on from the characters here. Let's talk about how they pulled off capturing so much with so little episodes. Because this goes across a lot of content. And I do think that you can sometimes feel the constraints of that. it does feel a bit rushed at times because there is a lot they need to cover and they don't have a whole lot of time or flexibility to do it. And I think it becomes very noticeable with the Syrup Village arc in particular, when Usopp joins the crew. So, one thing that the show does is the characters basically teleport everywhere they need to go. They don't really spend much time on the ship, which I do think takes away a little bit of the adventure element. I actually like a lot of the time spent on the ship, like the Going Merry in the anime. In the live action, you don't see a lot of that. They just say where they need to go, and then literally a few seconds later, they're just there, without anything in between. Which, again, I think is just the result of only having 8 episodes to get all of this story in there. So they had to utilize instant transmission. Anyway, they're at Syrup Village, and all the story beats are the same as they are in the anime and manga. The major differences are Shaman Buchi being different here than in the show and manga, as well as the absence of Django. Django's just not here. They kept him on the bench, which I think is a weird decision, because Django is pretty fucking cool. But anyway, Syrup Village arc introduces Usopp, and in the anime, they make it clear right away that he is a liar. He calls himself the Great Captain Usopp, he commands 1,000 pirates, he always, says pirates are coming to the village, even though that's not the case. They also establish that he's cowardly. He runs away from fights, he's afraid of it, and that's because he's weak, he's not strong, and he knows it. These are the big 3 things. He's a liar, he's cowardly, and he's weak. But throughout this arc, he is established to be someone that has a really high IQ when it comes to battle. He's very creative when it comes to fighting, and it also helps that he's very good at sniping with his slingshot. And the most important thing is that he is undyingly loyal to the people he cares about, so much so that in the face of all of his shortcomings and all of his weakness, he will put his life on the line to protect the people he cares about. And it eventually leads to the fucking Charlie and the Chocolate Factory golden ticket to join the Straw Hat crew. Now, in the live action, they keep all of the beats intact, but since it wraps itself up in 2 episodes, they completely miss the landing on making Usopp a character deserving of joining Luffy's crew. Like, he is a liar, he is cowardly, and he is weak in the live action, but he never has that triumphant moment where he steps up and he tries to protect the people around him. He shoots like one single slingshot pellet at Kuro, the main antagonist of this arc, and that's it. He doesn't get beat up or roughed up or anything like that, whereas in the anime, he goes through hell. He's like multiple times 1 foot in the fucking grave because he is committed to protecting Kaya and stopping Kuro. And it's this determination to protect those people even though he's not the strongest that makes him an admirable character that you can totally understand why you'd want him on board this crew. In the live action, there's just no reason. Like, he doesn't really do anything at all. He tells lies, he tells stories, and to showcase that he's good with a slingshot, he shoots like a little bit of food at a pan. And Luffy's like, oh, you're a good shot. And it was never really about Usopp being like a super strong sniper that Luffy wanted him on board. It was always about his heart, I think. It was always about Usopp and how loyal he was to protect people. And how desperately he wanted to follow his dream of overcoming his weakness and his cowardliness and becoming a brave warrior of the sea. In here, none of those qualities are really exhibited in this arc, unfortunately. And I think it's just because, it only had 8 episodes, so they couldn't dedicate enough time to do that. But I still feel like they needed some kind of triumphant moment with Usopp squaring off against Kuro to try and protect Kaya and Nami, as opposed to him just firing one single pellet and then Luffy immediately coming in and saving the day, just fucking blasting Kuro's ass. I do really like the live-action One Piece adaptation, but I'm not 100% sure how effective it's going to be at getting people invested in the One Piece world. I feel like having the context of the anime or manga going into the live action really helps elevate the whole experience because you have all of the background information on these characters and the situations they find themselves in, whereas someone who's coming in here cold, just a wee lad out in the rain knowing nothing about One Piece, all they have is the live action content to go off of, and I don't know how effective it is at conveying why Usopp is a good character and why Usopp should be on the crew. And I feel that way about a couple of other story elements, but I think Usopp's was the most egregious one that I thought they just didn't quite nail his reason for joining the crew or why the crew would even want him to join in the first place. But overall, like I said, I think the show hits more than it misses. The only other complaint I have is that sometimes the visuals get a little stinky. With a show's budget as large as this one, that's bound to happen. And I do feel like overall the visuals are great. I was very skeptical on how they'd work with the gum abilities. I didn't think they'd be able to make those look decent in live action, but they did. For the most part, I thought they nailed that. But there are times where the visuals fucking collapse and they look like literally the Flash level, like DCU bad CGI moments. The worst case, the worst scene really in the whole show is when Garp is chasing the Straw Hats and he throws a cannonball. This happens in the anime as well. Garp chases them, throws cannonballs. In the live action, it happens far earlier than it does in the show. And when he throws that cannonball, Luffy inflates and he deflects the cannonball back and it blows up Garp's ship. It blows up one of the things holding the sails. I forgot what it's called. Blows it up and it incapacitates them basically. That whole exchange, bouncing the cannonball back and especially the explosion, look atrocious. Actually looks like Adobe After Effects tutorial on YouTube. But yeah, I'm not going to get too hung up on that. Like I said, there are just some times where the visuals don't hold up super well, looking like some shit out of the CW. But for the most part, the visuals are great. So overall, the show I thought nailed it. This is the first like anime adaptation show that I think really surprised me with how good it was. It's clear a lot of passion and love went into this, and it's very clear that Oda himself was involved in the creation of this. I think that's the most important ingredient to have when doing something like this, is have the creator on board to help steer the ship the right way. And I really am excited for the future of this. I hope they continue, and I hope they're given more time. Because I think a lot of the things that myself and a few other people didn't think landed that well is just the result of having to cram so much in so short a time. Oh, also, I really wanted to mention this. They did make a major change with Don Krieg. I don't want to get into spoilers because this actually is totally different than the anime and manga, and it changes everything about, well, I'm not going to say everything. It changes a lot about Sanji joining the crew as well as Arlong. There's huge implications for a big change they made in regards with Don Krieg and that entire situation there. So I didn't love that. I didn't think it was horrible, but the unfortunate consequence of that is Sanji inevitably joins the crew, of course, and for some reason it feels like he's immediately obsessed with Luffy and the crew. Like he is really taken to them so quickly. Again, the result of needing to cram so much content in so short a time, but it just feels really out of place for Sanji in particular, who comes aboard with no hesitation whatsoever, no real like conundrum or really any thought whatsoever aside from just, sounds good, I'm in. And then immediately like he's ride or die with this crew forever within a couple of minutes. So towards the end, they made some very huge changes that I think had massive consequences and not always in the best way. But for the most part, though, I do feel a lot of the changes they made a lot of sense. And even the change they made here, I get it because of time constraints. That doesn't mean that it's great, though. It's hard to talk about it without getting into specific spoilers, but I think if you watch it and have watched the show or read the manga, you'll know what I mean, and I think you'll probably agree with me, but I have no idea. This is just my opinion on it. But anyway, overall, I did really like live action One Piece. Plugging it into the Moist meter, I'm going to give it a comfortable 80%. And I'm very excited to see what they do with this going forward, if it's popular enough to get a second season. But yeah, anyway, that's about it. See ya. For most sane people, it's extremely difficult to stick with a hobby that you don't like for an extended period of time. It kind of defeats the purpose of having a hobby. Why would you have a hobby of something you don't enjoy? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute. Might as well just be banging your head against a wall or slamming a toilet seat lid on your head. There's no real reason to do it, so if you don't like it, stop. Well, no one ever called me a sane man, so I've stuck with a hobby for a little over 4 years now. And it's time for my biannual check-in, kind of, on it. One Piece. Catching up on the One Piece anime. I started it at the beginning of COVID, and I swore with my hand on a stack of Bibles that I would catch up to the anime, which is well over 1,000 episodes at this point. And I'd like to report my progress here, because it has been tough. One Piece has some very high highs and some very low lows. There's some hits, there's some shits, and let me tell you, those shits be shittin'. They are rough. I swear to God, Ponce de Leon's expedition to Florida probably wasn't as brutal as the journey through some of these One Piece arcs. Some of these arcs are just downright inhumane to sit through, like something Guantanamo Bay would subject you to. Like, there are torturous methods here with some of these arcs, like Fishman Island. Heaven forbid, we'll get into that in a moment, we'll get into the weeds, but like, having someone sit down and watch Fishman Island is like torture Jack Bauer would subject a terrorist to in 24. It's rough. But hey, you don't get muscles like these without eating some of your vegetables, am I right? So I've been pushing through. I've been fighting off the sleep because, trust me, with some of these arcs, it is hypnotic. It is almost impossible to not fall asleep through some of these episodes. But I did it. It's like listening to a Jigglypuff song for a couple of these episodes, but I still endured. And now, I'm happy to say I am halfway through Dressrosa. So I'm pretty deep into the anime now, and I want to give you my overall thoughts on all of it. Now, I did this about a year ago, a year and some change. Much to the chagrin of the entire One Piece community, holy fuck, they ate me alive. They shit my whole ass for me. It was... I was thrown to the wolves. They did not like my takes. But I'm coming at you with more takes in just a moment. Right now, the biggest W take of all time, Goof Juice, is available right now, and there's a huge GamerSupps sale. This is my GamerSupps flavor, strawberry kiwi. It's the best goddamn flavor the world's ever seen. The best beverage, the perfect elixir. Trust me, your eye's gonna roll in the back of your skull in umami. It's amazing. Gamersupps.gg. There's a huge sale going on. Pick some up. But I'm back again with more takes. So I'm really liking One Piece a lot. I was very harsh on Luffy in the last video I made here, but I've really warmed up to him significantly since Marineford. And even... wow. Even in Fishman Island, I actually thought Luffy was great. I was very harsh of Luffy as a character, and I'm not going to just rehash what I said there, but I really think since Time Skipped, he has grown a lot. Like, he still has the exact same quirks and the same personality and everything, but as a character, I really think he's significantly more interesting, and he's not just so two-dimensional, at least not the way I viewed him beforehand. So, I loved Impelled Down and Marineford. Those were two absolutely extraordinary arcs. I don't even need to explain why I like them so much. One of my critiques of the show is how nobody dies in it, or died in it. Marineford has big deaths, and they are impactful, and I think they're handled beautifully. So I am much more satisfied with the way that death is handled in the show. I am very appreciative of the direction it's going there. It seems to be much more willing to make beloved characters face real consequences. So I think that adds to the stakes of the show for sure. But there is a huge blemish. So right now I'll tell you where I'm at. I'm in middle of Dressrosa, and there's a huge, huge roadblock I had to push through. Fishman Island arc. I'm just going to play a clip from stream where I go over just how terrible it was. I finished Fishman Island. Thanks to the One Piece card game, it motivated me to finish fucking god-awful Fishman Island. What was so bad about it? Oh, you know what? Here. I'm going to be opening some One Piece cards here in a minute anyway. Might as well talk about Fishman Island and everything I hated about it. Fishman Island takes everything that One Piece was doing really well in Marineford and wipes its whole ass with it. The Fishman Island arc is a tedious chore to push through, and it is unwatchable without One Piece. One Piece is a godsend and the only way to actually push through that arc. Everything about it undoes everything Marineford did great. It is truly a wash. Like, it is trash. And it's so insulting that it's a really important arc because of, like, Shirahoshi. But my god. So, the villain might legitimately be the worst villain I've ever seen in anime. Hody Jones is just a diet, great value Arlong, but significantly more cringe. And I feel like has no real character to him at all, other than just being addicted to meth. That's it. Like, he's just a pill-popping lunatic and nothing beyond that. He's not clever. He's not crafty. He's not even strong. Like, the Straw Hats are 1,000 times more powerful than all of the villains. So anytime they fight, it's instantly over. There's no tension. It's so dumb. Like, everyone's just cannon fodder in the arc. And Sanji is miserable in the first like 20 episodes where he just constantly starts bleeding out from nosebleeds, which was a really good gag initially in the beginning of that arc, but they kept playing it up and he just had nothing to do until the very end. Didn't you take like 8 months finishing that? Yeah, because it sucks. It's so boring. It's so boring. Like, if I didn't get into the One Piece card game, I probably still wouldn't have bothered finishing Fishman Island. Like, there's just never any motivation to watch it. I could go on and on with all the things I really disliked about Fishman Island. The pacing, every fight being just a complete showcase of how far above the Straw Hats were to the villains, which takes away all of the intensity of the situation. There are just so many things wrong with it. Sanji, Jesus fucking Christ, heavens to Betsy, just incapacitated for half of the arc because he keeps getting nosebleeds from seeing women, so he's bleeding out constantly. It was, I think, the worst arc in the show, but people said that Punk Hazard wasn't going to be great either, and I disagree. I really liked Punk Hazard, and I think it's because of One Piece. I can't give enough flowers to One Piece. It cuts out so much shit, and apparently Punk Hazard's big complaint was the pacing of it, so I did not have that issue. So I really enjoyed it, and I got to see a lot of Trafalgar Law, and what a badass character that is. Now, he hasn't been fleshed out yet, so I don't know too much about him as like an actual character, but his Devil Fruit is so fucking cool, and every time he's in a scene, he's the best part of it. His fight with Fergo is great. Smoker's here, and I really like Smoker, so that was cool. Overall, I liked Punk Hazard a lot, and I'm really enjoying Dressrosa so far, but I'll wait till I finish Dressrosa to give my thoughts on that arc. I'm not getting into specifics here because I already did in the last one. I just want to say my favorite Straw Hat is still Zoro. I still really like Zoro, but it does seem like he's taking more of a backseat role at the moment. He's not front and center of the last couple arcs. I'm sure he probably will start to creep back up that way soon, and that's fine. I still really like his character a lot, but Luffy's getting close for me now. I am really liking where Luffy is going. It's a lot of fun, and I've come around in a big way on One Piece. I'm a huge One Piece enthusiast now, and I'm super excited to finish Dressrosa and continue to catch up to the anime. So yeah, this was just the little check-in here, yapping about some One Piece. Also, the One Piece card game is absolute fire. That shit is so fun. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah. For the longest time, I was a Division 1 hater. I'm talking elite level, Hall of Fame status, frown enthusiast for one particular beloved property that everyone preaches the gospel for. I couldn't stand it, and I'd take every opportunity to passionately rant about it to the point where I'd have veins popping out of my forehead and flames coming out of my eyes as I was talking shit about it. And now I've become one of its biggest fans, to a level that I think most of its community doesn't even go to. It's like the dynamic between Vegeta and Goku, how Vegeta hated Goku's guts for the longest time, and then they end up being best friends, being like, you know, fist bump, I'll suck a fart out of your butt anytime, pal. That's me with One Piece. I tried watching One Piece so many times throughout my life, and every single time I dropped it because it was such a snooze fest I couldn't push through, and I really didn't understand the hype with. Now, I'm not here just to talk about like the One Piece show and my journey with it or anything, but 4 years ago, I decided to embark on the noble quest to actually catch up with the One Piece anime, which has over 1,100 episodes or so. And right now, I'm at episode like 860-something. And it's been a grueling journey to get there because I really hated the beginning of this show. I had to push myself to muscle through 300 episodes that I really wasn't liking, and then all of a sudden, a switch flipped in my brain that said, oh, actually I love this now. I don't know if it's Stockholm Syndrome or the sunken cost fallacy or what, I don't know, but I have become a massive fan of One Piece to the point that I now compete in its card game. I actually travel around and go to tournaments competing in the One Piece card game, and I'm getting scary good. I become like the fucking Baba Yaga of the local scene here for the card game. I am the boogeyman because I play Enel, which is a leader a lot of people despise. It's a very strong leader, like the deck is really consistent, but playing it basically turns you into a public restroom for everyone to shit on. Like, people wipe their ass with your face because they just despise you for playing it. Fundamentally, Enel is a stall deck. What it does is it heals you when you go down to 0 life and brings you to 1, which means you need to get hit 2 more times. So it changes the way a lot of people play against it. And I'm piloting this motherfucker like Tom Cruise in Top Gun. I am becoming one of the most efficient NL players the East Coast has ever seen. I went to a tournament last night, and it's only my second tournament, and I placed 4th. I top 4'd, baby, which means I got a tournament prize pack, and I'm in a good position for the upcoming Treasure Cup for One Piece. And I kind of just want to talk about this because I fucking love playing this card game now. I think it's super fun. So I initially got into it because I thought the art was really cool. Like, this is a manga rare I collected. This is like the top level rarity you can get, which is the manga rares. Or they also have like winners prize cards. So I got a tournament prize pack, but it's not a winner's pack. You need to win to get that, and there's special cards for it. It's super fucking cool, actually. But anyway, last night I top 4'd at a local, and I went with a couple friends of mine from the Skill Check channel. Skill Check is a channel where we mainly do a lot of TCG content as well as Dungeons and Dragons. So if you like chaotic and silly over-the-top TCG related shit for Magic the Gathering and One Piece, then that's the channel to go to. Check it out. I'll put a link to it in the description. And I've been kind of documenting my One Piece journey recently. So this was my second tournament. I went with Ryan, Zach, and Claymans. And Claymans and I top 4'd. So of the top 4, 50% was made up of the boys here.
I got absolutely blasted, Charlie. How'd you do?
I went 3-1. Me and Claymans top 4'd. So we have a tournament prize pack and then 4 normal packs. Yeah, I'm elbow deep in the asshole of this card game so much that I even got little custom sleeves for Enel. I mean, they're not custom sleeves. These are just like Enel sleeves that I found on TCG Player. And then I even bought an Enel mat. So after the tournament last night, we kind of hung around a little bit just to kind of do a debriefing, a post-game analysis, an after-action report to go over our games, victories, and losses. And even though the store was officially closed, the party had only just begun, because they allowed us goobers to stick around a little bit and just jam a couple more games for practice before they oh wow, huge voice crack. Man, I get into like an anime card game, all of a sudden my voice is hitting a new puberty. But anyway, they let us practice some more games so we could get ready for the upcoming Treasure Cup, which is a pretty big One Piece deal.
I think the most interesting thing for me, anything?
Yeah, I'm just going to do a flampe. What's interesting to you, Ryan?
Isho, in a Lucci matchup, he slammed it on the board and then was just like, you know what? I'm never going to attack you. And I was like, uh-oh. Because I was like, literally all of my strategy is hoping that my opponent misjudges the amount of rested characters and I can make math hard for them.
So what I learned is that if people don't attack me, I get fucked.
Yeah.
Like if people just try and like wait,
Yeah.
I lose a lot of momentum. Which is why I'm about to do something super stupid. I'm going like pure ape brain. And if you thought I was done, you're out of your fucking mind here.
Holy
Oh my god.
Jesus.
So now I'm much more comfortable.
Well, here's the thing. I was watching Charlie's late games, and he had this unique strategy where he took his little flompies and he put a bunch of fucking Dawn on it and started beating face.
No one expects that. That actually won me the Blue Nami game.
That makes sense.
6 at lead.
I'll go ahead and rest your prettiest flompy, so I kill it. And I like drawing cards.
Sounds good.
No,
I'll pass.
wait a minute. No trigger. All right.
Okay. I think I only really have...
I'm going to pack stuff. Oh, you know what? Please.
Oh yeah, you know what? While my back's against the wall, let's see what I pull in my.
Take a moment to.
Charlie got
rip some
a
packs.
placement pack. Ooh.
What do we got? It's a green.
I have no idea what it is.
I think it's just a promo.
Oh, Kazuki.
Kazuki. Oh, I actually think that might be one of the money ones.
That's
Mononosuke?
Someone was saying that.
they're running it in green yellow Yamato.
Man, I tell you, there was the comments on the last update video. You were like, playing against every NL player and just fucking getting dumpstered on by the triggers is the best feeling in One Piece. Or you're like, you know what? If I put down my double fucking Zoros and I swing 11 at your life 6 times, I'm gonna kill you. And it's like, nope.
No, not even.
Not even. I think you can probably kill me. Depends on what's in your hand.
Yeah, it's gonna be close. I don't think I can though. Actually.
Well, let's go to chat on this one.
What's chat saying? I'm gonna try. We're gonna swing the house.
All right.
We're gonna go 7 for the Russian L that I got from life.
Woo!
And we're gonna go. I don't think there's any way I could play that to win there.
I don't think what you drew got you there, but the
No, I
comments will
don't
tell
think
us, so that's good.
I'm not sure. 'Cause all I have in my hand is 1 case. Purely just 1 case.
I'm gonna put 4 Dawn on these and swing.
Yeah, I can't stop that.
Fair enough. Good game. Good game, man.
I'm just going to go ahead and give you a quick and dirty on how the game functions. If you don't know what is happening here, this is just a bunch of mumbo-jumbo gobbledygook that barely even sounds like English. I'll just go ahead and explain it. The One Piece card game is super simple to pick up, but it has like a really high skill ceiling, which is very nice. It's like super refreshing because it's fast-paced, and there's a lot of crucial decision-making components where even if you don't have like the best hands, you can still squeak out a win by being really smart. Unfortunately, I'm dumb as shit, so I have to rely on great hands, and last night the stars had aligned, and these mitts, we were getting some quality stuff in there. The hands were rated E for everyone, you know what I'm saying? So, the game works by having a leader, in my case it's an L, and if your leader gets attacked by any character or your opponent's leader with a number that's higher than this right here, which is your leader's power, or any card's power for that matter, you will take a life card. When you go down to 0 life cards, if you get hit one more time, you lose. Now, Anel's ability allows me to put a card from the top of my deck into life when I go down to 0, meaning I'll need to get hit 2 more times after going down to 0 to lose, which is what makes him such a headache to play against. And the cost for doing that is only trashing 1 card from my hand, so meaning I discard a card in order to do that once per turn on my opponent's turn. So he's a card that's pretty hard to get through to get the win. It's hard to push for the win when he can heal himself at the most crucial moment. Now, you can prevent taking from life by countering out of attacks. Now, counters are the things that are printed on the sides of cards here. So, like, this is plus 2k counter. So if something's swinging at my leader for 5k, I can counter up to 7 and not have to take from life. And you can do this for any character that gets attacked too, if the character is rested, meaning turned sideways. And you turn a character sideways when you use it. So attacking always has the advantage, so if 2 5ks are battling, the one that's attacking will go through. So you have to counter out of a 5k, and you have to counter out of anything that's over 5k, or you can take from life. The beauty of playing this is it's actually good if people hit me and I take from life, because I play cards that have really strong triggers. And triggers are things that you can do when you draw them from life. So like on this card I just showed, it has a trigger that allows me to draw a card, and if I have 1 or less cards, I just play this for free, which is normally a 4 cost, meaning 4 Dawn. Dawn works the same way mana does in like Magic the Gathering or the mana crystals in Hearthstone. So every turn you get 2 Dawn, except for your first turn you get 1. Whoever goes first gets 1, and every subsequent turn you get 2. Dawn can be attached to characters or leaders, so that way they can increase their power. So Dawn will boost anything by 1,000 for what it's attached to. So it just allows for so much flexibility, and since you draw from life, there's a huge comeback mechanic to it. So there's always just the element of, what the fuck's about to happen here? Did I just hit them and give them the card that's going to end up getting my ass beat here? You know, it's just a really super fun card game, and this is just like the very base level, very bare basics of it, and I probably did a horrible job of explaining it, but I'm not a teacher. I'm only a month and a half into playing this motherfucker myself. Hopefully, I can pilot Anel to a world championship W here for this game. I'm going to keep going to tournaments and shit for it. It's a lot of fun, and I just wanted to talk about it a bit because I've talked about One Piece a lot on stream, like for many years, about how I didn't like One Piece, I hate One Piece, this and that, you know, bah humbugging for a long time. Then I started watching it. I still hated it all the way up until a couple years ago when I was finally like 300 episodes deep. And now I like it so much that not only do I binge watch the show frequently, but now I play the card game. Like, you can't get more invested in a property. Like, it's crazy how that happened. So, anyway, just wanted to talk about it a bit. That's it. See ya. 5 years ago, I embarked on an adventure. Like Ferdinand Magellan circumnavigating the globe, I set sail with people waving goodbye, wishing me luck on my expedition. I vowed that I would catch up with One Piece. Over 1,000 episodes of this show, I was starting from square one, and it didn't matter how long it took. I was going to do it. No matter what comes, I certainly will, and it'll be a load blown with the knowledge that I watched every episode of this show, and I am proud to report that 5 years later, I'm almost there. I just keep getting asked where I'm at in my One Piece journey, so I'm going to give you the update now. I'm knocking on the door of the Egghead arc, and I've been doing these, like, almost annual updates on One Piece and my thoughts on it, so I figured it was about time since I'm moving past the longest arc in the show so far, which is Wano. Now, I said that I watched every episode. That's just a bold-faced lie. I have been using One Piece the entire journey. I truly would not recommend to my worst enemy to try and watch this show without One Piece or Onigashima paste, because there is so much fat that gets trimmed in these to make it so much better. So some of the arcs people really didn't like from the anime, like Punk Hazard, I actually enjoyed because I watched it through One Piece, which made it much tighter, much snappier, put a smile on my face. I got all of the juice without any of the pulp. And I really appreciated that. So that's my little pro tip for anyone out there that wants to follow in my footsteps with this path I've carved watching over 1,000 fucking episodes of an anime. Don't watch the filler. Don't do that. Don't subject yourself to that. It's not worth it. They wouldn't do that to prisoners at Guantanamo Bay. So I'm going to give you my whole thoughts on the show thus far. Spoiler alert, I fucking love it now. It was a brutal journey in the beginning. I had to really push myself to get through it, but with my iron will and resolve, I was able to persevere and get to the greener pastures. A lot of people call it Stockholm Syndrome. I just call it an acquired taste, and my taste buds began to be a little more refined, and I appreciated it. Also, I just think the show's quality improves drastically 300 episodes in. Now, first, before diving into this, I want to thank the sponsor for today's video. Big thanks to OperaGX for sponsoring the video. You've heard me talk about them endlessly. You also see it every single time I'm streaming. OperaGX is my go-to browser, and it has been for years. I think it's the best browser available. Just feels like there's endless customization options that have it be exactly how you want it. Keep all your messaging apps on the side so everything's nice and convenient. The GX mods also just got an overhaul and have been improved. That splash screens, custom UI, themes, backgrounds, you name it, wallpapers, everything has been bumped up, baby. The quick import tool at OperaGX makes it super efficient and super quick to take whatever your existing browser currently is and bring all of those settings over to Opera for a seamless transition over to the better browser. And the GX mods are really just a beautiful addition to an already super clean and efficient browser. And it's even getting a facelift. So it's getting a new updated look, making it even more fresh and clean. So definitely check out OperaGX, there's a link in the description, and thanks again for sponsoring. As I said, I just didn't really like the show in the beginning. It's because the pacing is just glacial, and there is just so much nothing. Like this nothing sandwich of emptiness that just happens so frequently in the early seasons. And it's, I'm gonna be honest here, sports fans, you're not gonna like to hear it. The animation has aged pretty poorly, which is probably why they're going back and redoing the anime from what I've read, like the earlier seasons, to, you know, breathe some more life into it, which I think is a good call. And I just really was not into it. I wasn't sold on the characters. It just moved so slow that it was just this hypnotic fugue state it was putting me in every time I put this fucking thing on. You might remember in my first couple of years on this journey, I was talking about how I literally couldn't finish episodes because I would just fall asleep. It was the actual cure to insomnia. I would turn on an episode, 30 seconds later, I'm going honk shoo. Like, I'm going me. Without, like, and I'm committing to trying to watch the episode, but I just can't because it's so fucking boring. And there's glimmers of greatness in the earlier seasons. Like, one of the ones people always point to is Arlong Park. I think that arc super duper sucks. But there are some really great elements to it, like the classic Nami scene, which I'm sure all of you have at least watched pieces of, where she's stabbing her arm with the Arlong tattoo on it, and Luffy comes in. It's very emotional, and it's really well done. But what you don't know is that it's surrounded by the most boring shit ever. That it, like, when you get to that point, it's refreshing, and then it goes right back to being boring. So I just did not like the early season of this show. But when you get to, like, episodes 300, if you, for some reason, like me, buckle down and just say, fuck it, I'm gonna do it, we're gonna do it live, and you get to, like, Innie's Lobby and Water 7, it really starts to pay off. Because I think those arcs actually start to push the show forward, and it gets this upward trajectory, this great momentum, and it carries it so well into Impel Down, into Marineford, which I still think is the best arc in the entire series, even after finishing Wano. And then it loses its footing again because it goes to Fishman Island, which is an absolute stain. That is an affront to God himself that arc even exists in the show, but there are some good moments in it, and I know that narratively it's extremely important. Like, you can't skip it, but you're gonna wish you could. After Fishman Island, we go back to greatness. It starts to be good again. And it's in no small part thanks to One Piece helping to cover up some blemishes with what I know was some pacing problems with things like Punk Hazard, as I mentioned, and Dressrosa. But with One Piece coming in there and putting some makeup on it, Dressrosa is nearly a masterpiece. I still think this arc has the best villain in the entire show, at least so far. I haven't finished Egghead. But I think Dofi, best villain in One Piece, hands down. And another thing that helps with these later arcs, these later episodes, is the animation is getting better. It's becoming more popular, it's getting more money, so as these seasons were coming out, they had more budget, and they put more into it, and you can start to see it. So the fights are flashier, the animation is smoother, it pops more, it's more vibrant, it feels a lot better to watch. So I really think One Piece is a show, and I know this is a cliche, that if you give it a try, there's a good chance you might not like it, but if you stick with it, there's a good chance you will like it. I have actually started agreeing with that really large take, and I mean large, I'm talking fucking Wumbo double D titty take, that One Piece is one of the best written pieces of fiction ever conceived. The depth of this show is unreal. I am in awe by how well written this universe is of One Piece. So I am very happy that I stuck with it and pushed through because it has become one of my favorite properties. Like, as I made an update like 6 months ago, maybe even longer, where like I have been so into the show that I actually started playing the card game, literally going to tournaments to compete in the One Piece card game. That's how much I have started to love the IP. And I initially got dogpiled by the One Piece fandom for my Luffy take like a year and a half, 2 years ago maybe. I don't even remember how long it's been, because I just was not liking Luffy. He was like my least favorite main character. And I'm going to wiggle my finger and say, why are you booing me? I'm right. I stand by my take where the early seasons with Luffy, I don't think he is the strongest character. It's very underwhelming when the big fight is brewing that Luffy has to be nerfed by either being too stupid to participate, where he gets himself locked in the belly of a snake, which I still find to be just so fucking frustrating, or where they have him nerfed. Then he can't participate at optimal efficiency for a variety of reasons. I don't find that to be fulfilling. I find that to just be really lackluster, and that happened a lot in the earlier arcs of One Piece. So I don't think he ever had a chance to shine and to get deeper. But after Marineford, that doesn't happen as much. It happens occasionally, but not to the same extent, where Luffy would basically be out of like the main story for quite a while other characters were taking care of like the bulk of it, and then he'll come in and save the day. Like that formula doesn't happen as much in the later seasons, so he's a lot better. Now I like Luffy. I enjoy Luffy a lot. He is front and center, especially in Wano, and even when he is nerfed, he's not really nerfed. Like when he's got the Sea Prism Stone handcuffs on, and he's in the prison for a while, he's still not nerfed because he's still training. Like, he is using that as an opportunity to train with his hockey. Like, all of that works now because he's no longer just written out for a while where he's just dealing with some kind of boring side quest or chore like in the snake's belly. Now he is actively doing things to work towards the bigger goal with the rest of the crew. So it's a lot better. So those are my overall thoughts on the show, but I want to get specific on Wano since that's the one that I have been in for a long time. It's also the longest arc in the series. It goes for a long time. I will say, biggest critique of it drags. Even using One Pace and even transitioning from One Pace to Onigashima Pace, it still does just drag. And I know this has kind of become infamous. There is just a chase that lasts for like fucking 40 episodes. I don't exactly know how many episodes it lasts, but like there is one group of characters. I'm trying not to get into like big spoilers, even though I know most people watching this are already One Piece fans. Still, just in the slim chance someone's watching this and curious on it, I don't want to ruin it for them. But there is a group of characters that are engaged in just this long chase sequence that just goes on for so many episodes, and it feels like every time it cuts to that, you just roll your eyes and you want it to be over because it doesn't really do much. It's just too long. It's nauseating. And that's really my main harsh critique. There's some other things I could nitpick, but I'm not going to bother. overall, I think the arc is super fucking strong. I love Odin. I think Odin is great, and Odin becomes this wonderful vessel that you get to experience the past of One Piece through, where you get to learn a lot about Rogers and Whitebeard. It's so good. Like, I think that is so good. And he himself is such an entertaining character that on the surface is very silly, but he's also extremely powerful, like the only person that was able to hurt Kaido. And the animation is so good in this season that all of the fights are really joyous to watch. Whereas, again, in earlier seasons, a fight is the fights aren't really rewarding. Like, you're not watching One Piece for the fights in the early seasons, but in Wano, I can absolutely see people that just tune in to watch these fights because they're really fucking good. So, Odin is great. All of his retainers around him are great. And also, boy howdy, do they introduce a lot of characters. Not just his retainers, but the headliners, the pleasurers, the spagooters. Like, there are so many different characters that get introduced here with so many different groups. It's hard to keep track of all of them, and a lot of them don't really serve much of a purpose. Some of them are just fucking thrown into the shitter at some point to be forgotten about. Didn't really add anything except for like a couple cool moments maybe. But I think one of the characters that gets introduced that is a standout in this arc is Yasue. What a great and tragic character who does something that I hadn't seen the show explore before. Not going to spoil what it is, but I really love that character and what they do and bring to this arc. And in a close second for best new character introduced in the arc, Yamato. I mean, I think that's a given. If you've watched Wano, I imagine you probably like this character. Also, it brings Ace back into the story, which is super nice. And overall, Yamato slaps. So really, there's a ton of characters that get introduced. Yes, some of them you can wipe your ass with because they don't do much, but there are so many that get introduced that are extremely good. Like Yasue, Yamato, Kanjuro, also not a new character introduced in this arc, but what Kanjuro goes through and what happens there, very well done. But without going too deep, overall it really is kind of a mixed bag. There are times where the writing is great for this arc, and times where it's kind of a disaster. It really is. Like Jack. Jack, for example, is terrible. Like, they hype up Jack early, before even getting to Wano. Jack has a lot of hype. He's the first, massive, big, scary thing from Wano. And he does nothing. Absolutely, he's a fucking fart in the wind. He is relegated almost like a joke in this arc. And I just have to ask why. Like, I don't really get why. And Kaido, the big, big bad, like the ultimate villain of Wano, he's kind of two-dimensional. Like, he's not a very complex character. They spend a little bit of time with his backstory, but not a lot. Like, not to the same degree as someone like Dofi, for example. Like, it was just kind of, Luffy going up against cartoonishly bad guy. And that's a little underwhelming. Like, Big Mom, I think, is a better villain than Kaido. And I really wanted to love Kaido more than I did, especially because the fight is so cool. But there is just not a whole lot of depth that they give Kaido in this arc. Again, there's a couple things sprinkled here and there, like especially with Odin, like with the fight against Odin, how it came down to Odin basically being deceived by someone on the sidelines where someone changed their face and it distracted Odin, and then Kaido got the finishing blow on him, and Kaido was so upset with how that ended that he killed the person responsible for that deception. And he shows immense respect to Odin in his final moments before being boiled alive. I guess that's a spoiler. Well, that's not a spoiler because you only learn about Odin through flashbacks. You already go in with the knowledge Odin is dead, so probably not a spoiler. Point is, there's only little tiddlywinks of Kaido development throughout the arc, but overall he just stays as kind of just big bad guy and not much else to him, which I thought was a little disappointing. Like, his surrounding characters, I thought actually had more depth. Like, King introduces a whole lot of new stuff to the equation. So, that, I think, is probably the biggest shortcoming when it comes to writing, that the villain just, I think, was a little weak. I still like Kaido as, like, this monstrous, hulking, terrifying presence. He is undoubtedly the strongest character we have seen in the show so far. I just wish he was also really well written at the same time for the arc. So yeah, overall, I really liked Wano. Like, I think it's a strong arc. It has its shortcomings, but as long as you're using One Piece or Onigashima paste, those shortcomings are much shorter than they would be if you were watching the whole episodes with all of the extracurriculars slapped on there that don't really contribute anything to the actual plot or the development of the arc. So yeah, just wanted to give you my little One Piece update. I will be caught up by the time it comes back from hiatus. One Piece is on hiatus, if you don't know. It's coming back in a few months. I don't really remember when, but I will be fully caught up by then. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah. We're coming up on a very special 5-year anniversary for a personal journey of mine. If it was alcoholism, I'd be getting a chip for this achievement right now, but I'm receiving a very different kind of gift for it. First, I need to ask, though, what have you done for 5 years straight with unwavering discipline and gusto? Mewing? Maybe? Yeah, and what do you have to show for it, tough guy? You still got that soft chin. What about jelking? You a big jelker? Spent the last 5 years in the laboratory desperately trying to put a few inches on that pathetic little meteors? Well, what if I told you that 5 years could have been better spent doing what I was doing? Watching One Piece from start to current. Over 1,100 episodes. Please, hold your applause, I'm no hero. I just did what I thought needed to be done to finally stop getting bombarded with the question of why I didn't like One Piece. I started this journey 5 years ago, which feels like the blink of an eye now in the grand scheme of my One Piece journey, because I had tried numerous times to get into it and just never fell in love with it. But every time I would stream, I'd always be getting the question about, what's wrong with you, Charles? You gotta screw loose to not like One Piece. So I started it out of spite, and I gotta tell you, sports fans, the first year or so of that journey, for the first 200 to 300 episodes, were brutal. Trying to stay awake watching those arcs was a more difficult boss battle than trying to kick a heroin addiction. It was tough. But I pushed through, I persisted, and I've been giving you steady updates once a year since, because after about 300 episodes, I did fall in love with One Piece. Experts may call it Stockholm Syndrome. I call it just objective improvements in the show itself. And I understand in the manga, everyone always says this, the pacing for the earlier arcs is just significantly better in the manga as opposed to the anime. And I imagine they're probably right, but I'd committed to watching the show. And I think once we start getting into Water 7 territory, the show really hits its stride, and it maintains that. The show does get a drastic improvement not only in animation, but in pacing, and I genuinely think everything in it starts to elevate. So I'm extremely happy I did push through and catch up with the show, because it is extraordinary. So now that I'm caught up, I'm just going to give you all of my thoughts, kind of as a all-encompassing debriefing, because like I said, I've been giving you yearly-ish updates on my One Piece progress. But I just want to put a nice little bow on all my thoughts on One Piece as a whole, and I guess I'll get into the nitty-gritty here, the spaghetti and meatballs of Egghead specifically, since that's obviously the most recent arc. But anyway, overall, I love One Piece, like I said. I think the show offers some extremely high highs, but with that comes some lows as well. In particular, Fishman Island. That is my least favorite arc in the entire series. I hated that. That was a slog to get through, and I found so little to like about Fishman Island. And I know I've yapped quite a bit about my disdain for that arc, and I'm not going to go too deep into it here, but just know that shit is poop. I do not like the green eggs and ham of Fishman Island. But my favorite arcs are as followed, in this order. My favorite arc is Marineford, followed by Enies Lobby, followed by Dressrosa. And the more thought I put into it, the harder it became to choose what are my definitive favorite arcs, because there are some turbo bangers in here. So it's always been a bit fluid, but the one that's never changed as my favorite arc is Marineford. That one's pretty unbeatable, but the rest have kind of moved here and there, ebbed and flowed. And I know Dressrosa in particular is a bit of a contentious pick to be in my top 3 arcs. Worth noting, I watched One Piece, so it cut out a lot of filler, which Dressrosa was apparently famous for. I didn't get that experience. I got just a really high quality, very compelling arc that I loved from start to finish. So maybe my Dressrosa experience was very different than a normal anime watcher's experience if they watched all the filler and stuff. One Piece did an extraordinary job of keeping everything flowing, keeping it moving, and it was great. I really, really like that arc, but I don't think anything will probably ever beat Marineford. I mean, I guess I can't say for sure because I don't know where One Piece is going to go, but Marineford was just a culmination of everything that had been building for so long in an extremely satisfying and emotional arc. This arc also opened my third eye to a painful revelation that I may not know what the One Piece is yet, but I do know what the one truth is, that Mihawk is a fraud. Mihawk clashed briefly with Vista in the Marineford arc, and it became abundantly clear that this man might just not be the world's greatest swordsman. Maybe he's like King from One Punch Man, where everyone just perceives him as this unbeatable, indomitable force of nature, but in reality, he's just not. We haven't seen Mihawk do a single fucking thing since he clashed with Zoro at the Baratie, like, 20 years ago. Like, it is so sad. Like, it is actually just so sad. He just gets by on aura and aura alone. Speaking of world's greatest swordsman, for the longest time throughout this series, my favorite character was Zoro. But now that I'm finally caught up, it's still Zoro. It was then and it is now. People like to boil him down to just being like a very one-dimensional flat character, but I just think that they're not watching the same show. That's so disingenuous. I can recognize that his motivations and a lot of the side quests, we'll call them, that he goes on are simpler than the rest of the crew, but that doesn't mean that he lacks as much depth as they have. I think Zoro is a perfect character to contrast the rest of the crew, and I always appreciate where he ends up throughout the arcs. My favorite villain is Doflamingo, but my most slept-on superstar is Magellan. I'm somewhat of a Magellan maniac. I believe that if that man could get off the toilet for even just an additional 3 or so hours and they'd let him spread his fucking wings outside of his prison, that man could be an actual threat. Now, of course, it's just pure delusion and hopium to believe that we might see him again engaging in the overall plot of One Piece. I think his role is kaput. He himself is a prisoner of the shitter, and he will probably never leave Impelled Down. But I think if he ever did, he would genuinely be an extremely powerful character, even in like the current landscape of things. My most controversial take on One Piece is that Sabo is genuinely a fanfic character that you have to suspend disbelief in order to accept his presence in this series. I really, like, the more and more I think about Sabo, the less and less sense it makes for him to even be here. Just this secret third brother that just happens to pop up out of nowhere, and somehow he is the well-known second in command of the Revolutionary Army, a world-famous group, and yet somehow Ace, who himself is extremely notorious and high-ranking in the Whitebeard Pirates, never knew Sabo was alive? Was Ace illiterate? Maybe, but even if he was illiterate, why the fuck couldn't he see pictures in a newspaper? Did he never hear Sabo's name, even though apparently everyone knew about Sabo, who he was in the Revolutionary Army? And there was never anything in Ace's ear that was like, wait, Sabo, it's ringing a bell. My brother. It just doesn't compute, and especially the timing makes it even more fishy, where it feels like the sole reason behind Sabo's presence in the story is that he was drummed up, conjured as a replacement to Ace. He just happens to come through after Ace's death. He also gets Ace's devil fruit. It really feels like Sabo's entire purpose was just to be a Ace replacement. And the way Sabo even is used in the story itself is very odd. He's kind of here as like this all-powerful, damn near omniscient presence who can do everything, and is used exclusively for, like, these fake-out moments. So, like, he goes to the world government, and, like, the 5 elders attack him. He might be dead, but he's not dead. He's on an island. The island gets blown up. Sabo might be dead. He's not dead. It's, like, it's very weird. Sabo as a character just doesn't really fit with the rest of the characters One Piece introduces, and it just feels like the way in which he is put into the story feels very forced and very out of left field. Now, not to be confused with me being a Sabo hater, I don't even really dislike him or anything. It just feels very odd how he gets into this story in the first place and the way in which he is used in the story. But his scenes are hype. Like, it is a cool sequence when he, like, tries to save Cobra and everything. Like, it is cool to watch, but I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense how we even got to that point with Sabo in the first place is all. But still are cool sequences with Sabo, and I do think that he is an interesting character. Anyway, though, let's now dive into Egghead. So when I was first watching Egghead, I was a pretty vocal Scrooge on it. I didn't really love the first half of the Egghead arc. The second half, however, significantly better and much more invested. I think the second half of Egghead has been really, really, really good. First half, bit of a snoozer, but I do think it was necessary to eat your vegetables first here in this case because it does help lay the foundation and build the stakes for what comes in the second half. But yeah, I really was not liking the first half of Egghead. I really didn't like the Seraphim, by the way. I didn't think that they were a strong addition to the One Piece story. Vegapunk, love Vegapunk. I love everything with Stella. I think that is so good, and I really think I can't remember if I've been doing spoilers when going through my One Piece journey. I think for the most part I have been, because a lot of the arcs that I've been covering are like fucking 15 years old. But I don't know if I should do spoilers for Egghead since it's still fresh. I'll try and I'm gonna have to get into spoilers. There's no way I can talk about some of the things I didn't like about it without getting into spoilers. Let's start with the things that I really liked. Kuma's backstory. My oh my, did they hit a grand slam with Kuma's backstory. That is probably the peak flashback. I don't want to use the word arc because it's not a flashback arc, but peak emotional character backstory so far in the show. I thought they really crushed Kuma's story. It is tragic from top to bottom, and his whole existence in the show is just agony. And even where he ends up in Egghead here, there's nothing happy about it. For a character that himself is so positive, despite everything he went through as a child, with his parents and himself being enslaved and them being killed in front of him, with his father being murdered in front of him, still trying to find the light and still holding on to the hope of that legendary hero that will come to save them, and then trying to make a difference with the revolutionary army and saving people, and then himself still being dealt such a bad hand. There's always fingers crossed, hoping something finally goes Kuma's way, but it never does. Even when he's raising Bonnie, she's gonna die if he doesn't give over his humanity to the world government, to Vegapunk, to turn into this soulless killing machine, basically. The Pacifista program, all based around him, a weapon for the government. And he does it out of love for his daughter. But to save her, he had to abandon her. And then she went on her own pirate journey quest. Now she's gotten the truth, wants revenge on the 5 elders who were overseeing the program, in particular, Saturn. And Saturn becomes like our main big bad of the arc, and I think he's a really good villain. And he's not alone. There are other villains there like Rob Lucci and Kaku, whom I do think they're good villains, but I didn't like the flip-flopping so many times there. I think that was a little overdone. I get why it's there. Stussy also being there. Her role was very cool. That was quite the plot twist reveal there with her role and everything. But even though I like Rob Lucci and Kaku, like their presence there, the amount of flip-flopping I think was just a bit excessive. But in addition to their presence being there, there's also Kizaru. And Kizaru is a very interesting villain because prior to this, we'd always seen him as just like this callous, uncaring, calm, cold, bad guy. Like, do I need to kill them? Fine, I suppose it would be stimulating. I am a little bored. Here I go, reluctantly killing for the sake of the government. And that's all you ever really got, so you're under the impression that he's just like this guy who will do pretty much everything and he won't feel anything. Just basically a heartless bad guy. Well, here we get a lot more fleshing out, a lot more backstory, and it turns out he is actually somewhat intertwined deeply with Bonnie, Kuma, Vegapunk. So when he is tasked by Saturn to kill Vegapunk and Bonnie, he really doesn't want to. You can start to see emotion in this character. When he does ultimately kill Vegapunk, he is anything but happy. And it feels like there's almost this sense of relief when Luffy is able to actually overpower him. And he makes like the treasonous decision to feed Luffy when Luffy was, out of energy, out of power, so that we can continue to fight against Saint Saturn. So we got a lot more out of him, and I thought it was really interesting, and I'm so curious to see what his motivations are. What does he want? What is his goal? What is he doing? It's so good the way a lot of these things were built up and how they were executed here so far in Egghead. This is also the arc in which we get the most exposition on the Void Century and filling in the blanks for everything that's been happening that has been a mystery to this point, like with the poneglyphs, Joy Boy. Vegapunk gives a final message to the entire world, revealing so much information, much to the chagrin of the Five Elders, whom show up at Egghead to try and put the kibosh on the broadcast and shut everything down because they can't have these secrets getting out about what's happened in the past. It's just really satisfying now because it feels like we're finally starting to see the big picture. We're starting to get these breadcrumbs to follow for what it all means and what actually happened 800-900 years ago. Who is Joy Boy and everything? Who are the Five Elders in Emu? Like, what is all of this? It's so, it's hard to not wait on bated breath for the next episode and the next big reveal. Oh, also, one of my earlier complaints with this show, the whole series, is that there was always this hesitation to kill someone, even if their role in it had been finished, their whole arc. Like a Arlong or someone. Pretty much a villain who served their purpose that I don't think we'll ever see again. The show still had a tendency to just knock them out and move on. They fainted, and that's it. Never to be seen again. And they did that with every character, not just villains, but any character I thought that they were setting up for a death, didn't die, most notably Pell, so long ago. And I get with Pell there was a lot of stuff going on at the time there with Pell, which maybe led for him not ultimately facing a demise there. I get that, but that's just another example that I'm pulling from. There are countless others of characters that I thought should have died there to amplify the emotional stakes of what was being built to. With Egghead, though, no longer does it feel like there is a hesitation to kill off characters. There is a lot of character deaths in here that I didn't expect, that I didn't see coming, that are important characters, so it really does feel like we're reaching the end game here. I just wanted to make a mention of that. No longer is that a complaint I have with recent One Piece. They are actively killing characters. It feels like it's getting much more intense. Now, one of my biggest complaints so far about Egghead, though, and it's not even in the first half, it actually is in the second half, bringing all five elders here, I think just kind of made them seem weaker than they are. So, I like Saint Saturn as a villain. I think he's a great villain. But him actually fighting Luffy, he looks like a bitch. And I get Luffy, as the new Joy Boy, is supposed to be absolutely fucking stomping this man. He's basically blue waffling all over Saint Saturn. It's not even really a contest. But Saint Saturn as a fighter is really underwhelming. He's basically like the Derek Zoolander of the One Piece universe. He has one move. He has one look. And it's just by throwing out his little spider legs, and that's it. He doesn't do anything besides that. Even when he's not fighting Luffy, and he's going after the rest of the Straw Hat crew, he can't even kill them because he's only using his spider legs and nothing else. And then he's oh, this is a waste of my fucking time. I'm just going to run. So he does. So he goes to the next thing. These insects, I won't bother with them. It just makes him look not a very terrifying presence. And when they brought the other five elders in there, the same phenomenon happened where, because now there's so many, they can't give a whole lot of focus to them. So instead, they all only do one thing. Warkery, I think, is the best example of that. That fucking goober is the equivalent to that goddamn Rick and Morty butter robot whose only purpose is to serve butter. All Warkery can do is go into boar form and charge. That is all they show him doing. All he does is just charge. So when the Giants arrive, which, by the way, super hype. I'm extremely excited that Elbaf is being brought into the Megamix here. Bragi Dory back in the fold now. It's very exciting that they're there. They're having a good time. They're super powerful. And Warkery, all he does is just charge and headbutt. That's it. It just makes him seem kind of lame. He's like a Honda player in Street Fighter 6 just spamming that one headbutt special. That is all Warcree does. So, like, it just makes it feel like he's not really a threat. He only can do one thing, and he's not even succeeding at it. Like, he's not even doing a good job with headbutting. And that's just so underwhelming for these 5 elders, whom we have this entire time been led to believe probably the most fearsome, terrifying creatures on the fucking face of that planet. And yet here all 5 of them are just getting toyed with, really. Getting laughed at, getting blasted around. Like, they can't even stop a broadcast. Like, they can't even find the transponder snail and destroy enough things to stop it. Granted, they have to be a little careful with the mother flame, I get that. But they just don't look as strong as we've been led to believe, because now all 5 of them were here, still basically getting embarrassed. Like, so far, there hasn't been a moment where I'm actually concerned about a character because of the 5 elders' presence, because they're just not good at doing anything they aim to do here. I think it would have just been far stronger if it was only Saint Saturn who was up against everyone, the Giants, Luffy, the Straw Hat Crew, all while trying to stop Vegapunk's desperate broadcast to the rest of the world to get the truth out there. And Saint Saturn, against all these odds, is still making it a close fight. That, I think, would have been a really strong showcase for the 5 elders and how scary they can be, that one of them is able to go against all of the strongest in the universe there. But the fact that all 5 show up and still can't succeed, it makes it seem like, well, Luffy will probably end up just fucking dog-walking them at some point. Like, it doesn't really feel like they're as terrifyingly powerful as I thought they were now. Whereas, again, if it was just Saturn there, I'd be left thinking, like, damn, this is just one of them able to, do so much across all of Egghead here. I can't even imagine what'll happen when the other 4 get involved. But now I don't have to imagine. I know what happens when the other 4 get involved. Still fucking nothing. They still can't, kill even, a giant or anything. They can't stop a broadcast. They can't do shit. Like, it just makes it feel like the 5 elders are just kind of weak. That's just, my main complaint so far with Egghead. It kind of took a lot of the oomph out of the 5 elders. Anyway, though, that's really, my only major complaint with the second half of Egghead. Like I said, didn't love the first half, but maybe it just wasn't my cup of tea. There's really nothing in there in particular I think was bad. Even with the 5 elders, I don't think it's bad. It's just, I don't know, it felt a little underwhelming given how much had been built up about them is all. But overall, I think it's a very strong arc, and I'm really, really happy that I caught up to One Piece and I get to enjoy this in real time now as we're entering, the end of this legendary series. I think it's a masterpiece. I will say, though, I don't expect anyone to follow suit and, force themselves to watch 300 episodes if they're not enjoying it. I think it's totally fine if you just don't like One Piece after X amount of episodes to just say it's not for you and be done with it. There's nothing wrong with that. I probably would have done the same thing if it wasn't for me being so spiteful. I probably wouldn't have pushed through as hard as I did, and then I did actually fall in love with it. Again, not Stockholm Syndrome, just an acquired taste. My taste buds got a little more refined is all, as the show got better. Anyway, I just wanted to give you this yearly update here, basically. Fully caught up, we fucking did it. That's really about it. See ya.